Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and it's the big flagship podcast. It is the mothership, whatever you want to call it. This is what we do every week. You're listening to this on Wednesday, but we record this live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So I recorded this on July 18. You'll probably be listening to this on July 19, and that is awesome. Thank you very much for letting me into your devices, your ears, your eyeballs. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the next couple of hours or so talking about professional wrestling right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, where if it is where you are, I would suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel as well. These things help out the channel a great deal, just like leaving 5-star reviews and 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you're listening to this on your audio feeds. That also helps out a great deal. And it's also a very good moment, right, to subscribe to what I do, because I'm putting out tons of content. I'm doing my daily coverage of the G1 Climax 33. I've already started. We've got, at this point, as I'm recording this, we got 3 nights in. So I've got 3 nights in the can. We're going to have another one on Wednesday, and moving forward, every day there's G1 action. I will be there to break it down, recap it, give you some analysis, preview what's coming up. It's a good time. It's favorite time of the year. The best tournament in pro wrestling. So if you want to get into it, if you just want to hear about it, or if you want recommendations, or you just want to follow it from afar, or you're not quite sure how to begin, I'm your huckleberry. I'm your starting off point. I am your landing pad. Whatever way you want to use me, use me. I'll also be here on Thursday to do the AEW Dynamite review. That has not changed, as well as Sundays, to do the AEW Collision review. So there's a lot of content coming out these days. So it's a good time to subscribe. It's a good time to join. And it's also a good time to join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord, where there's a lot of wrestling. So there's a lot of wrestling talk happening on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. The link is in the description. We would love to have you around. But as it stands for today, we got a nifty little show set up here. We're going to be talking about Warner Brothers wanting more pay-per-views from AEW. We're going to talk about the bans and the restrictions that AEW is coming out with as well. We're going to review Impact Slammiversary 2023 and a few other nuts and bolts, a few little things. We're going to preview Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor. Again, I'm recording this on a Tuesday, on Tuesday the 18th, when there's not many matches having been announced, so I'll do my best. By the time you're listening to this, there may be more stuff, but look, the pay-per-view's in 4 days. What do you want from me? Oh, thank you for being here. Let's go with the weekly wrestling inspection. Fightful Select reported that earlier, last week, right? It was last week that this was reported, that Warner Brothers Discovery was looking to expand the number of pay-per-views All Elite Wrestling puts on in a year. Here's what we got from the report over from Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful Select. WBD, that's Warner Bros. Discovery, for those of you wondering, has proposed expanding AEW's pay-per-view schedule significantly, including the possibility of AEW running one pay-per-view show a month, similar to WWE's schedule of airing one PLE a month. It was not confirmed whether these pay-per-view events would be standalone events or would be included in a streaming deal involving AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery's streaming service, Max. While it was stressed that an expansion on the number of AEW pay-per-views was something WBD wanted, nothing had been finalized regarding the member, and the situation may change depending on how further negotiations between AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery go. So this has been all essentially speculation. Of course, this was a report coming in from Fightful, but today Tony Khan held a media call for Death Before Dishonor, and I'm like, the first question that should have been asked is, where are all the matches? But that was not. That's why they don't invite me on the calls. That's why they don't want me on there. Because that was legit. Tony, where the hell are the matches? Anyway. But Tony Khan essentially today confirmed that he was indeed in discussions with Warner Bros. About expanding AEW's pay-per-view offering. Here's the quote. This is off of Fightful.com. I think it's evolving. I believe no wrestling company that has ever expanded its pay-per-view calendar due to demand and economics has ever regretted the decision. Something WCW. In general, there have been factors that have helped wrestling companies rise and fall over the years, but I do think expanding your pay-per-view calendar has often been something that has been seen as revenue positive and an overall positive for companies. Certainly, when there was competition in the past, more pay-per-views was the standard. For us, we launched with a very methodical plan. We built a really solid calendar of major events. Now we're talking about 6 major events that are pay-per-view worthy. As for expanding the calendar even further, it's something we've talked to Warner Brothers Discovery about, and it's something everyone believes could be revenue positive. It's something to certainly consider, but I'm very happy with what we built. What are the 6 major events he's talking about? Like the base 4, right? All Out, Full Gear, Revolution, and Double or Nothing. And now Forbidden Door. What's the 6th one? Is he talking about All In? Grand Slam? Grand Slam's not a pay-per-view. Like none of these are pay-per-views. Like Grand Slam, Fyter Fest. Like what would be the 6th one? Is he talking about All In? Is he talking about the Wembley show? But that's not even like a new thing, right? I mean, I don't know what in his mind right now. I mean, I guess, you know, I would see, he could probably, he being Tony Khan, could lump in All In this year, right? But it's not like a regular. That's why I'm just a little surprised it's not a regular thing. Hey, Jason Major has become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. How you doing, Jason? Thank you so much for the membership. I appreciate it a great deal, man. Welcome aboard. Gonna get access to the member streams too on top of that. Holy shit. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I don't know. Look, anyway, it's a bit of a detail, but I'm assuming he's thinking about. Thank you very much. I assume he's talking, he being Tony Khan, he's talking about All In, and that's this year they're doing 6 pay-per-views. Does that mean that he'd want the UK show to become a yearly thing? Look, back to the actual story thing that we're talking about is in regards to more pay-per-views, which has been received. I don't think it's been unanimously well received. I think a lot of hardcore fans have been very accepting of the news. I think there's a lot of fans who aren't crazy about the news either. I don't think anyone is really excited at the idea of feeling like they have to spend another $50 a month. In regards to in order to watch, more big AEW pay-per-views. Well, now let's sort of take this down. Let's break this down maybe like a little bit by bit before I get everything all jumbled up here between, certain thoughts and then fan things. And now he's talking about this being revenue positive in a sense that, this is, it's jargon, it's corporate jargon, which basically means that this would be that that when something is revenue positive, it means that it generates more revenue, that it's something that will easily generate revenue as opposed to create a new set of expenses without having the revenue to show for it, right? So you're not like starting off in the red. They feel like this will continue to generate more revenue. This is different from profit, right? But of course, if you sell more tickets to shows, if you are selling more pay-per-views to shows, then yes, logically, that will create more revenue. So yes, it is essentially a good idea. And I would assume that from a business perspective, it makes a ton of sense. I would assume so. Because especially if you're looking at the calendar right now, where AEW is doing quite well, you know, having a nice plateau of a nice base, I should say. It's not a plateau, but a base of like 140,000 to 150,000 pay-per-view buys per show for the last, let's say, 4 shows or so. They've entered that territory. That's a decent number. That's a good number. Like it's absolutely non-negligible. So of course you're looking at that and you're like, well, could we sustain this? Could we take a hit on could we take a hit on these numbers, but have more larger numbers spread out over months where we're not running pay-per-views? I don't know if I'm making myself clear. So let's break it down another way. One of the first reactions I saw is, well, if they start making too many pay-per-views, people are going to stop buying them. And they're not going to buy them as many, so their numbers are going to start dropping. Okay, and I think that's a fair basic criticism. And I think that's something that you do consider as a risk factor if you decide to add more pay-per-views to your schedule. But then you absolutely then can factor in, well, and especially Tony as a numbers guy, they've probably, ran models or whatnot to look at the possibility, how much attrition, therefore losses, would they have per established pay-per-view right now versus the ones they would add, the extra buys they would add if they added new shows. So, just as an example, let's say we're at the 140, let's say we use 140,000 pay-per-view buys as a median, right? Right now they're running 5 shows a year, 145,000 pay-per-views per show. Bear with me here if it's not exactly the same thing. Let's say that they move to the 12 pay-per-views a year. Maybe these big 6 shows that they have are big 5 shows, I should say. See, Tony, you've already gotten into my brain. These big 5 shows might drop to 130, 120,000. So you could look at that and go, oh, that was a failure. But what if the other pay-per-views all do 100,000? You're adding 6 extra pay-per-views that all do 100,000 pay-per-views more. So between losing, let's say, 30,000 buys on Double or Nothing, Revolution, All Out, Forbidden Door, and Full Gear, let's say you're losing 30,000 per pay-per-view there. If you're gaining 100,000 on 6 others, well, the risk is there because you're gaining essentially 70,000 new buys as opposed to the ones. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Because you're getting 100,000 new buys. Off of the 30,000 that you'd lose, you'd get like 70,000. Now that's, of course, I'm just, spitting examples here. I'm not necessarily saying that this is what's going to happen, but I think from a business perspective, from this revenue positive perspective that Tony is talking about today, there's more chances to make more money with more shows, even if you lose potential buys for your big shows. Even if your median becomes 120,000, well, you're doing 120,000 over 12 shows, as opposed to 145,000 over 5 shows. So that's a net positive. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. Makes sense to me, but numbers aren't my thing. I'm an English major, but so hopefully, hopefully at the very least that made somewhat a little bit of sense. Now, the audience, of course, the question here is, can the audience sustain paying premium prices every month? Well, see, that's part of the attrition part of it. There's really no way we'll know unless they dip their toes in and try it out. I don't think there's any other way to go about it. I think it's been shown that AEW pay-per-views do very good business, and it's stable business. And I think they're going to do extraordinary business with the All In show. So I can see Warner Bros. Going, yeah, man, let's go ahead and do it. And that's a good thing, right? Now, what this does ultimately for the company, now if we're talking less about business and we're talking more about the creative side, the stuff that the fans really get invested in, right? What this does for the company is that it changes the way they have to book. It changes fundamentally the way Tony Khan approaches booking the shows then, because it's no longer a question of, okay, well, I'm going to build a pay-per-view over a full quarter. Now I'm going to be doing the monthly pay-per-view stuff. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's going to be hard to say. Maybe it'll be a good thing on one hand, because so let's say let's say we get to let's say Tony Khan has to, one of the criticisms he has is that he's a little too scatterbrained, and he drops booking ideas because they drag on too long, so on and so forth. Well, maybe this will force him to think a lot more short term, or at least find his story bumps quicker so that things get built better. That could be a thing, right? Because that is a criticism of Khan's booking style, which I don't entirely disagree with. On the flip side, will he lose perspective of booking long term if you're always trying to get people seated in the next month, right? That's absolutely another concern. What type of arenas then are we trying to look at, right? Now we're maybe sliding a little more into the business side, but are we going to suddenly start running, all of these pay-per-views in big NBA stadiums, hockey stadiums? Is that what we're going to do? Not stadiums, arenas, excuse me. And can this lead to a couple being like legitimate stadium shows, like big NFL stadium shows? Arthur Ashe is a big venue, don't get me wrong. But when I'm talking stadium, I'm talking, 45, 50, 60,000 people. Can AEW start doing that? Again, we don't know. We're going to have to see how that goes. It's a lot of stuff to consider at once. It's absolutely a lot of stuff to consider at once. And I don't think that adding pay-per-views is going to be a popular decision among fans. And I'm going to tell you, and I want to preface this by saying, just by reiterating a point that I've made in the past. When, Tony Khan would go on media calls, and then you have media members saying, why 11 matches on your pay-per-view? Why is it so long? Well, how can you book pay-per-views this long? Like the idea of wrestling quantity, right? Like the amount of wrestling out there is, I've always thought when there's complaints brought up about it, when people bring it up to Tony Khan, when it's talked about on podcasts, I sincerely believe that it is a content creator problem and not a real problem. I don't think more of what you like as a consumer of anything is a bad thing. I think that if you're a consumer and you are into a thing, I think more of it, well, not never, because, I just had Star Wars pop into my head, or Marvel. I think there is too much of a good thing, but you as a fan will not poo-poo it away by saying, oh, it's too much. You're going to be like, all right, what you might complain about as a fan is that's not as good. That's not as interesting as that. And I think that's a legitimate problem as opposed to the quantity. So if I'm sitting here telling you I think it might be too much, it's not because I, as a content creator, am suddenly afraid that I have so much wrestling to watch now. Like, I can cut off whatever I want and don't want to watch. And quite frankly, I would much rather be in a situation where there is too much choice as opposed to a few years ago when it was bare bones and you only had one thing to watch and keep up with. Otherwise, we're completely out of the loop. Like, this is rich. This is fun. So au contraire, as a content creator, I'm like, let's go. It'll give me more stuff to talk about. I'm excited about this. This is good don't get it wrong. For anyone who does what I do, Tony Khan adding more pay-per-views to AEW's schedule is good for the business, is good for our business. It's good for us. And there's no one who can tell you the opposite. But the concern of it being of quality dropping is a legitimate concern. I am very weary of AEW becoming, turning into WWE. That's something you don't want. That's not something you want to see happen, right? You want to be able to really have an alternative. If you want to watch WWE here, the great thing is that there is WWE. Isn't that fantastic? But Warner Bros. Discovery, look, if this is what they want, if this is what the network wants, this is what the network is going to get. And how are they going to do it? How are they going to deliver it? Is this going to go on Max? Is this going to be a pay-per-view? Well, we heard this week, it may be unrelated. It may not be. But we heard this week that All In from Wembley Stadium will be aired as a pay-per-view. I'm going to read this off of the Wrestling Observer Figure 4 online. AEW All In will be a pay-per-view event. Our own Andrew Zarian has confirmed. The promotion has not officially announced how fans will be able to see the show from Wembley Stadium on August 27, but Zarian noted on Friday's Mat Men, we're talking about last Friday, that it will air on Bleacher Report in the United States, similar to other AEW pay-per-views. And they also discussed reports about the move to 12 pay-per-views a year. And the question, of course, remains. The question also remains, like, what do you do? How do you distribute this? Bleacher Report, that's a thing. Max is also there, right? Does it make sense to put it? Does it make sense to put it on HBO? And include it in the package? Your boy would say no, it doesn't make sense, because the WWE network shut down because it devalued its product and it was too expensive to run, and they realized that $10 a month to get everything was not a good idea. So I don't think that this is the way to go about it. And trust me when I tell you that I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised in the slightest if WWE next year charges for WrestleMania. You have WrestleMania, but you have to shell out $60 for it. You're not going to be able to see it live on the Peacock. You're gonna have to shell out extra dollars. Why? Oh, I'll tell you why. Because that's how Endeavor does its business with UFC. UFC has the thing on ESPN Plus, right? But they don't give away their big pay-per-views. You do have your subscription, but then you want the pay-per-view, you pay a little extra. If you're a New Japan World subscriber, you know that this happens occasionally. Most of the big tentpole New Japan shows are all available in your $9 a month subscription. But then suddenly you'll have the All-Star Festival. That's going to cost you a little extra. The historic crossover event, that's going to cost you a little extra. This is a model that is reappearing, and that I am 100% convinced AEW is going to dive into. So if they go on Max, here's what I think. You go on Max, you give us access to previous editions of Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, the whole shebang. You put all of that, you put the historical stuff, you put it all up on Max. That would be great to begin with. The old pay-per-views, that would be great as well, but you get a tier system involved. On Max, where it's like, here, you get this event, but yet along with your $9.99 a month, whatever it is, subscription to Max, you get you pay $60 and you get the pay-per-view. And get this shit off of Bleacher Report. I feel bad for all my American pals who have to deal with that shit every time there's a pay-per-view. And I see it all the time. People complaining, it's not working, man. Every single fucking time. I just plug in Fight TV and I do the thing, and it works as easily and simply. It works as easily and simply as any other fight thing. It's fantastic. But look, I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that's going to happen. Adds value to Max, and this allows AEW to become another revenue stream, a revenue positive for Max as well, because then Warner Bros. Gets a cut off of that on top of the subscriptions and whatnot. I mean, this is the thing. We have to stop thinking that all these pay-per-views are going to continuously be offered to us for free. It's just not a thing that's going to happen anymore, because the WWE Network proved us that it is a model that doesn't work. It failed. The WWE Network was a failure. And you can't sugarcoat it multiple ways. If it was successful, they wouldn't have sold it off. If it had been successful, it wouldn't have plateaued at 1.1, 1.2 million subscribers for like 3 years without any growth. It hit its ceiling. It didn't work out. They pulled the plug. And now they're licensing content. So any dreams that we may have of AEW offering everything on Max and everything goes through my subscription, those are pipe dreams. And I think if it does happen, I'll be the first guy to be shocked, but also as a consumer, the first guy to be happy. But I'll be shocked if it happens. If it does, let's dive into it while we'll have the chance, because there will absolutely be a shelf life on that, where eventually they're just going to pull the rug under our feet. They're just going to pull the rug under our feet. But look, if this is what Warner Brother wants, they're going to get it. They're going to get all the stuff they want. And if they want 12 pay-per-views from AEW, we're going to get them. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing. I hate the I hate the idea of look. Not everything needs to be an A show. Maybe the extra pay-per-views are shorter. Maybe they're not $60. Maybe they're $40. Maybe they're $30. Not everyone has to be on the show. Whatever it is. But the idea of the idea of more pay-per-views, I come at it with mixed emotions as a wrestling fan, as a consumer. From a business perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense. And clearly, Warner Bros. Sees AEW as a good revenue vector. How about that for some corporate jargon? No, but for real, they really do. And we have to stop pretending that there's this rift, this misunderstanding, the relationship. What I'm trying to say is that the relationship between AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery is clearly good. Very good. Otherwise, Warner Bros. Would not be asking AEW for 2 extra hours of content prime time on a Saturday night. They wouldn't be leaving Collision on television if it wasn't working out for them. It's just as simple as that, and we have to come to grips with that. We have to stop pretending that they can't be happy with Rampage. They are fucking happy with Rampage, and I'll tell you why. Because Rampage hasn't moved. It hasn't been canceled. It's still in the same spot. It's doing the numbers it's doing, but they're doing fine. And I don't know if you noticed the advertisers that they get on Rampage on Friday night. They're getting cars. We got car advertisers. We're not getting 5-hour energy, 6-hour energy, whatever the fuck it was called. We're not getting Dr. Ho's electric back scrubber. You guys know what I'm talking about if you're in Canada, whatever it is. The back thing creates spasms. No, we're getting we're getting big time advertisers on Friday nights at 10 p.m. You're going to stop telling me, you have to stop telling me that Rampage isn't doing good for Warner Bros. And that they have to be unhappy because they would have pulled the plug before now. And if they were unhappy overall, they would not have asked AEW for another 2 hours of programming on Saturday. And I'm this close to talking ratings about Collision. I'm giving it another 4 weeks, but we're already seeing patterns. I'm just gonna give it another 4 weeks. Stacker 2 is what it was called. That's right. Anyway, folks, disaster has struck. AEW has started banning things. Bans, restrictions. No longer is this the Wild West of pro wrestling. No. We gotta corral everyone. We gotta make sure that everyone, that the natives don't take over the asylum. Not the natives, the inmates. What did I say? The natives. The inmates. They can't be taking over the asylum here. As AEW this week was revealed that they put out a document that was obtained by Fightful Select. It said that in this document, multiple things were banned. Multiple things were suddenly no longer going to be admissible, or we're going to require the approval of a coach, a trainer, or someone in charge, a producer, someone in charge that will make sure that everything is okay. We do need the burial, but I should have played the burial video because I do have that queued up, but because of my audio issues, I am not sure it's going to play properly. Shit. I'm just uncertain that I'm just too afraid that that the segment would be a dud. Anyway, so things that wrestlers can do in a match are now going to be scrutinized a little more by All Elite Wrestling. Now, there's 2 levels to this, and I have, I was amazed at not amazed. That is absolutely the wrong word. I was reassured that the level of reading skills from people on planet Earth still can't comprehend the difference between a ban and a restriction. Because Everyone was losing their mind. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people. And there's a lot of stuff going out there that maybe isn't exactly right or truthful. So, allow me to break it down a little bit here. Because there are bans, there are things that are restricted, that require approval. As for the bans, the things that are outright negatory, nada, you cannot do, these are things like unprotected chair shots to the head, to the back of the head, buckle bombs, or blind moves backwards into the turnbuckle, not unlike what Jay White did on Collision this week. Fencing responses, which is the unnatural position of arms following a concussion. You know, when guys get really, or girls get really stiff. Can't do that. Can't do that unless it's real. Seizure cells. Oh, geez, I wonder why. I wonder who got people worried about seizuring in the ring. Spitting, which is something Jay White did on Collision this past Saturday. Bleeding in the crowd, which is completely understandable. Weapons or projectiles in the crowd. Taking drinks or food from guests in the crowd. Boo! Or physical contact with the crowd. Boo! There goes. There's 70% of MJF's shtick. It's just out the window. Terrible. How's a heel supposed to get over in our day and age? Jesus. I mean, I read this off, right? And you're all picturing in your mind, you all know, you all have moments where you're like, oh, it was probably because of this, right? Like taking drinks or food from the crowd. You know, you had Hangman Page who'd do that with beers, right? But then you had MJF throwing, the vodka onto the kid. Which, by the way, because we talked about this with the members on our members only stream last Friday. I brought this up. I think MJF did that kid a favor. The hell is his mother doing drinking like 20 ounces of vodka with her kid at a wrestling show? What is she going to do? How is she going to get home? Is she going to drive home? Huh? Want to tell me? I think MJF did that kid a favor. The seizure cells, of course, I mean, that's clearly, Bryan Danielson and all that response that people had when he did the thing at Forbidden Door. But like, there's things here that just make complete sense at the same time. Unprotected chair shots to the head, no, and that's been a no for years, and I think all wrestlers should adhere to, because that's nonsense. Buckle bombs are, are sneaky dangerous. And Taz, you'll notice whenever not every time, but it happens often when there's a buckle bomb that happens, he'll oversell it and he'll say, man, I got hurt on one of those. And, Taz gets it, and he doesn't think people should be throwing those around too much. So, okay. I mean, overall, a lot of basic things where you're like, yes, these are basic things to protect wrestlers. That's fine. The seizure cells and all that. Okay. So that it doesn't minimize the impact of a real, if a real unfortunate event were to happen, then it's like, we're not trying to make light of it. We're not trying to make fun of it. We're not trying to, it needs its gravitas. I can understand that. Bleeding in the crowd, brawling in the crowd, or weapons or projectiles in the crowd, and interacting with it. I can understand that in the sense that AEW just wants to protect itself from lawsuits. I think it's just that simple. So I can understand it. Now, here's the list of moves that are not banned, but do need the approval of a coach, of a producer to use in the course of a match. Spots and bumps on the ring, apron, and outside. Table, ladder, chair spots in and out of the ring, and they are allowed only with padding. Any elevated spots outside of the barricades, dives and ladder spots on stage, around the arena, and other places outside the ring. So, jumping off, doorways and shit like that. All pile driver / tombstone variations, including sit-down drivers, inverted, poison hurricane ranas, and vertebreakers. Okay. High-risk dives or top rope moves, 450s, 630s, double moonsaults, shooting star presses, etc. Intentional bleeding of any sort, not just blading. Throwing people into, through, over, ring steps, commentary table, bell table, guardrails. Okay. Weapon usage. Chairs, pipes, kendo sticks, hammers, ring bells, bats, chains, title belts, thumbtacks, skewers, barbed wire, and other sharp puncturing objects. Powders, aerosol sprays, liquids. Any throwing weapons or objects like chairs. Throwing any weapons or objects like chairs. Pardon me. Choking and strangling with hands or a weapon or hanging spots. Injury spots or angles, which are not, whether or not medical is involved or called to the ring. Any physicality in the crowd or crowd brawling. Any physicality involving referees, managers, extras, celebrities, or special guests. So if you invite, people on the show to be a guest, ringside announcer, whatever, you as a wrestler should not go and try to throw them around. So again, like I said, I talked about it a little on Friday with the members, and I am not as doom and gloomy as I feel a lot of people are. However, I kind of feel like, let's go one thing at a time. I think that, these restricted spots, not the banned ones, right? But the restricted spots it feels like a list to help encourage more discussion in the locker room between wrestlers and producers, and while avoiding repetitive spots on the show itself. And I think that makes sense. I think that's the basis. Look, of course, general safety of the wrestlers, so on and so forth, but I think better communication from talent to, the producers and to medical and production on what you want to do. And then a coach can be like, well, look, if you want to do this, no, you can't go through commentary because we have it for the main event kind of thing. It's just to make sure there's no repetition, and also to probably cool some jets down a little bit, because this is a thing that happens in pro wrestling locker rooms. Guys, gals going out, getting mad because they're watching someone wrestle and said, shit, they blew my spot. They went and did what I wanted to do. So then the wrestler comes back and they're super mad. They come off the match and they're coming to the back, and then the other wrestler comes up and then they're pissed off and they're like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Going through commentary table. I was supposed to do that. Well, I didn't know, brother. And then it becomes a thing, and egos and hot-headed and adrenaline and all this shit. And you're running a timed live show. You don't have time to deal with this bullshit. So it's just like, okay. So this is a way to just streamline everything. On one hand, to make sure communication's okay, but also to cool people down. Right? Because if you're doing the same spot over and over and over again on a show, well, even if it's supposed to be a dramatic spot at the end of the show, if you've seen it twice already previously, then it loses a bit of its luster. And it should, that spot for the main event should be more significant because it is the main event, right? Just throwing smoke here. But I think, like, you know, I really believe that this is something that was done it's more of an HR thing than a true to form, like, safety police kind of thing. That's how it comes off to me. Because look, I know how wrestlers can get. I know how they are, and they're very protective of their things and what they can do and what they need to do. And sometimes they get heated when people go out and do their things that they had planned to do, and they're like, shit, why did you go do that? Now I wanted to do that. Now it's not going to look as cool or whatever. That's how it goes. So I think there's a lot of crisis management in this, including, don't get me wrong, including lawsuits, avoiding lawsuits, like I mentioned. Absolutely. People getting hurt unnecessarily. Here's another thing that wrestlers do. They don't disclose all their injuries. They don't tell, let's say they're prepping a match. Let's say, two wrestlers are prepping a match with each other. And they're like, one guy has, he's busted up his shoulder and it's really bad. And medical knows it. And then this other wrestler goes, hey, man, I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to drop you on the shoulder. And that's how we're going to end the match. And it's going to be amazing. I'm going to do this crazy ass spot. And the other wrestler goes, yeah, cool. Because he's wrestler brain. Because he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to tell this wrestler that I'm hurt because I'm fearful of losing my spot. Then he goes out and he injures his shoulder more and whatnot. Like, this is the kind of shit that happens. So if it's at least cleared by medical can step in and say, no, we can't do this spot for medical reasons. Because again, shutting down, this is also a thing, the relation of power, the relationships of power within a locker room as well. If you're John Moxley, hang on, let me say that again. If you're Griff Garrison, just throwing that out there, and you're in a match with John Moxley, and John Moxley, you sit down, you go through their match, and John Moxley says, hey, we should do this, we should do that. You, as a junior member of the locker room, are not going to shut down John Moxley and say, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that, because John Moxley might not take it well. Maybe not John, but there are definitely people who would take it as a slight. I don't know, I'm just putting that out there. But if medical comes in and says, look, we can't do this spot, then the vet goes, oh, I get it. It's not just this kid trying to be, trying to push, trying to throw his weight around. There's really a situation here where we cannot use this spot. Okay, I get it. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like this covers a lot of things, a lot of discussions, and a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of misunderstandings. I think it covers a lot. But here we go. And this is outside of all the good that this is probably going to do, I am not a fan of restrictions in general. Not a fan of people telling other people what not to do. And I think that this could be the beginning of a slippery slope. I'm not a fan of being told what to do. So again, these aren't restrictions. We're not clamping down on what wrestlers can do. The wrestlers are still going to do this stupid shit. They're still going to do the things that we love, right? They're not shutting down 450s or Poison Ranas. We're still going to see this incredible athleticism that helps set AEW apart from the competition. But you're opening the gates here. You're slightly, once you begin the possibility of banning things, once you start that, it's very hard to stop the flow. You create precedent, other things are going to follow. And while on the short term, even the medium term, I'm comfortable with this, there's still a little bit in me. There's a little bit inside of me that on the long term, I think this could end up creating more problems. We're not on the verge of having so many things banned and controlled that there suddenly is an AEW house style like there is in WWE. I don't think that's where we're headed, not right now. But what I'm saying is that the door is open now. What I'm saying is that there is a possibility for this to happen because you've started, because you've begun. You know, you give an inch, you'll get a mile out of restrictions. Once people in power start being able to control people on little things, they're going to try and control them on more things. That's just how it goes. Again, I'm not saying that to be perfectly clear, I'm not saying that this is a doomsday scenario that we have, that we're in, that AEW is dead as we know it. However, I think we have created a precedent here. I think there is, the door is ajar for more of this in the future, more outright bans, more things being controlled as to what wrestlers can and can't do in the ring. Just don't forget one thing. A lot of the creative help that Tony Khan has right now in WWE, in AEW, right? A lot of the creative help he has. His producers, Sanjay Dutt, I'm drawing about, and the others, I'm drawing a Pat Buck, Ari Daivari. These are all WWE guys. These are all guys who came in, who produced matches for years in the realm of sports entertainment, in this realm of everything has to be streamlined and controlled and so on and so forth. So again, I'm not saying that we're in it, but there's a lot of pieces in place here that should, at the very least, create a modicum of concern. There's a lot of elements in AEW right now where you could absolutely look at this and be like, you know what? We're still far off from being Fed-like, WWE-like. We're still far off, but holy crap, the basics are all there. But then again, like right now, if anyone is complaining and shouting at the sky, saying that this is the worst thing on earth and that AEW is dead, well, you can absolutely point at them and laugh because that is nonsense. Right now, it is absolute nonsense. But as for now, we are going to, I have a little grab bag of news. Just a little grab bag of little tidbits, just a couple of things. And I want to talk about that aren't necessarily like a full topic, a full thing. A lot of AEW stuff that we're talking about tonight. Someone told me recently that, Warren, you don't talk a lot about AEW on your show. Well, it's because I give a lot of my AEW thoughts on my review shows, on the Dynamite show and the Collision show. There's a lot of thoughts that go there. But so if you want, more AEW talk, and what I think about what's going on in the shows and whatnot, well, check those out. But, I think that, there's some significant events that happened this week in AEW television that we should at least cover, mention, talk about. Willow Nightingale and Ricky Starks win the Owen Hart Foundation tournament this year. So congratulations to them both. What a year Willow Nightingale is having. She's on top of everything. She's going to be challenging for the Ring of Honor World Women's title in just a few days, but we're going to be talking about that soon in the Ring of Honor preview. And Ricky Starks getting some shine and some stuff out of that. Now, it dawned on me. Well, look, it didn't dawn on me specifically there because it's been a topic that I've brought up a couple of times. But as much as I feel like the Owen Hart tournament is fantastic, I think it's great that wrestling fans have a way to honor and remember and celebrate the memory of Owen Hart. Because that's phenomenal, really. And it's something that I think we all needed. I feel that there has been I feel like the booking is slapdash. I feel like everything is sort of whipped together real quickly. There doesn't feel to be any thought in here, right? And this is one of, the problems with Tony Khan's booking is that, the things that are meant to be important have, feel important and have, minute details fleshed out, whereas a lot of the undercard stuff feels a little more, slapdash, a little more haphazard. And I think the Owen Hart feels that way. It felt like that last year. I feel it's even, especially on the women's side, feels worse this year. And I think it should feel important. And if you needed any other reason for it to feel important, if you needed any convincing, go back to Battle of the Belts. Don't watch the whole thing, but go back to Battle of the Belts and listen to the speech that Martha Hart gives, her earnest speech in regards to the accomplishments and, how these athletes competed and so on and so forth, in the memory of, the great Owen Hart, remembering his athleticism, his contributions, and his laughter, his person, because he was a good man. I think that's exactly what she says, right? Of a good man. And I'm listening to her and I'm like, this tournament does not live up to what it's supposed to be. Because the way Martha describes it, the way she put it into words, I'm like, yes, absolutely. This is absolutely a celebration for Owen, but it feels so secondary. It feels tertiary. It doesn't nothing really fleshed out. It just sort of, okay, we're starting it now. I don't mind that the tournament lasts 2 weeks. That's not the problem. But we could have some build. We could have some promos from the competitors beforehand telling us how they want to win the tournament, how it's important for them. They don't always have to reference Owen. That's not the point. But make the tournament feel important. It should feel important because clearly it is important to Martha and Tony Khan. This tournament is important to fans. You know it. So my wish for next year is if the tournament returns, there's always the if. If the tournament returns, I want it to be treated like a big fucking deal. I want the competitors to know. I want to know them. I want to know who they are ahead of time, before the night of the first opening brackets. I want to know 2 weeks in advance. I don't need a month. I don't need 2 months. I need 2 weeks in advance. I want 1 week where you announce the brackets. I want another week where these guys cut pre-tapes. And then the week after, we're getting into it. Same with the women. And I'm going to tell you what, on top of that, I want more women in here. I want the women to be stronger. I want the women to be, I want them to be chomping at the bit for this because it felt soft. The tournament felt soft on the women's side. And I don't appreciate that. I want everyone in this fucking tournament to grab it by the throat and be like, this is my moment. Tony Khan, not that long ago, was talking about, I don't remember on what outlet he was talking about. He was like, I'm not close to the idea of doing a G1 in North America, right? The G1 needs, North American wrestling needs its prestigious tournament, And whereas I believe that a round robin tournament would be great on American television because, American wrestling fans aren't used to them, I believe Tony Khan right now has his prestigious tournament in his hands. He has it. And I think if he really wanted, he could make it into the G1 of North America and invite people from outside. Look, we got Satoshi Kojima on night 1. That's fine. Don't get me wrong, right? Well, not on night 1 at Forbidden Door. We got that. That's fine. But legitimately, I was expecting 2 guys from New Japan in the brackets, and at least one of them who'd win the quarterfinals, because, especially a guy who's not involved in the G1, like Satoshi Kojima. He could have stuck around an extra week, get a big pop in fucking Edmonton, and then, take a flight home. Like that, I feel like that's something that Kojima's not busy right now. He's not even in New Japan these days. He's doing excursions right and left. Like I have an attachment to Owen Hart as a Canadian and a wrestling fan, and every year, this is the second year. It's the second year in a row where I'm saying this tournament has to feel bigger. We have to make it bigger, and not necessarily adding more people into it. Just make it feel important. Make it feel significant, Tony. You don't need to suddenly come up with your G1. I think you have it. Everyone wants to celebrate the memory of Owen Hart. Find me a wrestler out there who doesn't. Who's like, nah, Owen Hart stinks. Who wants to do that? And make it prestigious. Bring in people from the outside. Hell, change the format next year if you want. If you want to do your round robin tournament. Let's do that. You could make the Owen Hart the big wrestling tournament in North America, but you have to believe in it, Tony. You have to make it happen. You have to put, care. You have to put TLC in it. Not ladders and chairs. No. Stop with the wrestling brain. Tender love and care. You have to put attention, thought, and love into it, which I don't think it's getting properly.
Here's the definition of care: the provision of what is necessary for the health, welfare, maintenance, and protection of someone or something.
I don't know why my Google Assistant decided to help me out here. But was I in distress? It's all right. But there we go. Look. I said it last year when it ended, and now I'm back with the same thing again this year, and I'm kind of annoyed because I want this to be celebratory. I want this to be celebratory. I want this to truly be the celebration of Owen Hart. And I think, look, if there's a guy who could bring anyone in wrestling, if there's a guy, the memory of one man who could bring so many people together in pro wrestling to say, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm going to wrestle in the Owen Hart tournament. It's Owen Hart. It's the memory of Owen Hart. What are we even doing? Am I being too much of a fanboy here? Maybe. Maybe I'm being too much of a mark. But I legitimately think that there's long-term implications here that are being left on the table. I think it could be prestigious. It could be bigger than what it is. Anyway, I'll let that go. Want to say hi to Bill Bodkin from thepopbreak.com. Y'all go bookmark that. Do people still use bookmarks on their browser? I don't do that anymore. But you should bookmark it, or at least write a post-it. Nice to see you, Bill. I'm glad to see you. No. Do you still use Delicious? Remember that? Are you old enough to remember Delicious? I will say this. The Owen this year started, the Owen this year gave me the funniest fucking moment I have seen in pro wrestling in a long time. And I talked about it on my Collision review, but it bears repeating. This was during Battle of the Belts. Yeah, it was at the start of Battle of the Belts. Ricky Starks is still in the ring, just won the tournament. And he's about to walk back, right? He's about to walk up the ramp, and we have the camera there. And then from behind, out comes fucking Jushin Thunder Liger, right? he had leaked it himself that he was on his way to North America. He had tweeted it, and he said, "I'm coming to Calgary for the Owen." Oh, that's awesome. And Jushin Thunder Liger, pro wrestling living legend, a guy who is responsible for the redefinition of pro wrestling and what you see today in a ring. A guy at the very core of it is there because of his relationship with Owen Hart, because of their history as combatants. While Owen was in Japan, and he comes out and he's got, of course, the mask. He's got the full mask on. He's got the robe, the shoulder pads. We have ourselves full regalia. Jushin Thunder Liger, and he's glimmering. It's everything shining, and he's there to hand the cup to the winner, being Ricky Starks. So he takes the cup and he comes to present it to Ricky Starks, and Ricky walks right past him and yanks the cup out of his hand. Like, just yanks the fucking thing, and then walks up a little further, poses. Liger is like over there, and I am bawling with laughter. Think about the absurdity of this moment. Just take a second to think about it. Legitimate pro wrestling legend from Japan takes an overseas flight, crosses the Pacific Ocean to probably, transfer in fucking Vancouver over to Calgary. Legend. And they fly him in. They pay for him, unquestionably, right? We'll handle your ticket, Mr. Liger, not a problem. A guy who has a storied history with Owen Hart. True to form, Hall of Fame. Not, pretend Hall of Fame. Real deal. Hall of Famer. Legend. Comes out. And he's just like shrugged aside by the heel. That is some of the best fucking heel work. I have seen it, and I think it's lost on a lot of people how great that moment was. Because the whole absurdity, the whole glorious absurdity of what pro wrestling is came washing all over me. I wasn't mad. I wasn't offended. I was like, what an outstanding angle. Bringing this guy in, flying him across seas, and he's barely on TV 30 seconds, and he doesn't even have the moment. The heel just grabs the cup and hits the bricks. He's out heading for the pay window, out to get a big, a hot night's action in Calgary. My God, that was funny. That was a glorious moment in the history, in the annals of professional wrestling. And I don't even know if anyone was really offended by it. I haven't seen anyone talking about it. But I thought it was, because you couldn't have a more pro wrestling thing than that. A more pro wrestling thing than to bring in a special honored guest and just poo-poo him aside because we have an angle to run. It is outstanding. I loved every second of it. And I'm sure Liger was in on it. Like, that's not even a thing where it's like, no, they told him. He's like, sure, I'll do it. He got paid regardless. You know what I mean? What a glorious moment. But look, this was probably, that was not just probably, that was unquestionably the best part of Battle of the Belts. It was the best part of Battle of the Belts. Because listen, after this week's great Collision show, I have to ask, what purpose does Battle of the Belts serve? I don't know what. Again, look, I'm sorry if you heard this on the Collision review. I'm going to rehash some points here, but I think I want to get this out here as much as possible because Battle of the Belts has to be stopped. It's pointless. It's nothing. Everyone is always on about Rampage, how Rampage is a nothing show. Well, Rampage has more significance in the AEW ecosystem than Battle of the Belts does. At least, like, Rampage now is slowly turning into this, main event, into this velocity, into this Sunday Night Heat, whatever you want to call it, right? The show for hardcore freakazoids who want to watch everything, completionists, and you'll probably get a cool match once in a while. And that's its space now. And that's useful, especially in a world without dark elevation. That's what it's going to turn into. Now the collision's here. But Battle of the Belts is a nothing show where nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens. Do you know off the top of your head when is the last time a title changed hands on Battle of the Belts? I'll tell you when. Scorpio Sky and Sammy Guevara. How long ago was that? April 2022. And the last time I ever heard anyone say, yo, you got to watch this on Battle of the Belts, happened on Battle of the Belts 3 when we had Claudio versus Konosuke Takeshita. And that fucking ruled. But outside of that, and this past Saturday's Battle of the Belts was miserable. And I'm not done talking about miserable shows. I've watched some miserable wrestling this weekend. This was miserable. A sad, pathetic show. We have Lance Archer. I'll tell you one thing. Lance Archer in Japan hits so much different than Lance Archer in North America. I can't tell you what the sauce is. I don't know what goes on. But he's a different man in Japan. Whatever happened there, and then the blackout, even outside of the blackout, outside of the technical issues, Battle of the Belts, what was it, 7? Was a bad show. It stunk. And this is not the first time, and it's been degrading in quality. Now, I'm not going to rehash the multiple times where I've talked about getting excited for Battle of the Belts. Oh, the super cards are back. I'm excited for this. I couldn't give a shit anymore. I don't even know what happens on the show anymore. It's booked 3 days in advance. I don't even think Tony Khan cares about Battle of the Belts anymore. I don't think anyone cares. I think everyone is about, well, I'm going to get paid. Here's some TV time. No one should watch it because it's nothing. It's a nothing show. And until there's a concerted effort to make it feel special again, until it make it feel special, period, there's no reason to watch it. Nothing ever happens on these shows. The world title has never been defended on this show. The AEW World Tag Team titles were defended on the Saturday night show on Collision, but not on Battle of the Belts. I even put out there, if they had any balls, they would start the 2 out of 3 falls match on Collision and have it finish on Battle of the Belts. If they had any balls. But they didn't. Because that would have made Battle of the Belts too interesting. It's a bad show. It's a bad wrestling show. And there's no use to it. No use in getting excited about them. No use in making a thing out about it anymore. It's not a thing. Hasn't been a thing in a while, and they stink. That was a bad pro wrestling show. Wasn't good. But I saw worse. this weekend. I was really excited for a show that was headlined by El Hijo del Vikingo and Kenny Omega. I was like, hey, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I had access to it. I'll sit down. Haven't watched Triple A in a while. Well, it's going to be a while until I rewatch Triple A, Triple A, Triple Mania, 31, Tijuana, one of the fake Triple Manias. July 15, from Tijuana, in the Estadio Caliente. I'll tell you one thing, this show was anything but caliente. Look, this is not a review. I'm not breaking down this show in minute detail. But I do have to share. Because there is no way I watch this show for nothing. That at the very bottom least of what I can do is create content. Make it at least, give me a little something back that I can use. Because what an absurd waste of time. What a god-awful show. I'm talking about Battle of the Belts being a bad show. I just thought it was, everything was uninteresting. The matches were fine, but everything was uninteresting. Everyone seemed uninspired. There was no, you didn't feel the effort. You didn't feel the passion. Here, everything was wrong. From the production to the booking, and some of these matches just outright stunk. And some things blow your mind. Some things just completely blow your mind as you're watching the show. Look, the show opens up and there's a rumble match where everyone comes in every minute. And it's, it's intergender. And you have people in this match, okay? Like Laredo Kid, like Taurus, like Willie Mack, like Dinamico, Gringo Loco, Mr. Iguana, Lady Flamer, and others. And from the get-go, it stunk. From the get-go, this match was bad. This was a snoozer. Then Laredo Kid comes in, tries to inject some life into this, and he gets properly eliminated like shortly thereafter. He doesn't even make it to the end. There were distractions, and this was the theme of the entire fucking show. Like, interferences, distractions. Look, you get annoyed when AEW does it too much or WWE does it too much. That's nothing. That is nothing to what I saw on this show. La Hidera won the match. And I don't know if this is Conan's way, right? Because he's the booker. I don't know if this is Conan's way of saying, look, I'm progressive. But he should instead start booking good matches instead. And because there were too many talented wrestlers that I also like in that match. Too many talented wrestlers for it to stink. And it did. Then there was a tag team match, Team Mexico versus the World. Dalis, Lady Shani, and Sexy Star. Not that one, Sexy Star 2. Defeated Camille, Natalia Markova, and Viva Van. There's nothing good to talk about. And production was all over the place. There was a table spot that didn't even end up on TV. Like, this stunk. Then a trios match where you have La Rebellion and Pagan versus Vampiro, Jack Evans, and Aramis. That was, again, laden with interference. And also had Vampiro in 2023 wrestling. I don't even know if the match is officially over. Like, we're all still scratching our heads. How did this match finish? Count out, no disqualification? Was it is it no contest? I don't know. Then after that, a shit 8-man tag that I could barely care about it, and the match made me care even less. Just a fucking waste. Negro Casas bled in this match. That's the highlight. Then Pentagon Jr. and QT Marshall had an ambulance match, which started off with the theme of the night, interference. Aaron Solo was there. Tirantes Jr. was there. There was barbed wire. There was tubes. Production here was... production on this match was awful. The cameras were never, ever at the right spot. There were, like, guys are fighting out in the audience, and they're showing shots of the ring. We've got hard cam shots. And Penta fucks up a pile driver, a spot on tables. He fucks up the pile driver. And honestly, there was a point. There was a point in this match that I thought it was about to get good. There was a point where I'm like, oh, I can feel something going, but it didn't. It was too long. It was nonsense. It was nearly 19 minutes. QT won. He stuffed Penta in the ambulance and look. And then, okay. Now this is actually kind of funny though. This is actually kind of funny. Roosh and LA Park took on Psycho Clown and Sam Adonis, which was pretty good for the standards of the show. It had some life to it. Had some shit happening, okay? And they are doing a Guerra de Rivalidades. So basically, it was a tournament that's been going on for the entire year, I think, at this point, where you team up with someone you don't like in the tournament, and and in the finals, the losers of the tournament then have to fight each other in a hair versus mask match, which is a big deal if you know anything about lucha tradition. Hair and masks, losing either is a big deal. So the idea here is that they've been pushing to get Roosh and LA Park to do it for a while. And that's what everyone kind of wants to see, because they're both stars and they're both, but they're also two fantastic carnies. Roosh earlier this year said that he left AAA. Company said, he brought his dad with him. Company didn't say a word. Then LA Park started saying, no, I'm gone. And then like a week before this Triple Mania show, Roosh tweets out or something, says, I'm going to be at AAA. The company doesn't say anything. Like, we didn't know what he was going to do. But he showed up, wrestled the match. And this was the finals. These were the finals. Because Psycho Clown and Sam Adonis don't get along either. But the idea was that whoever wins this match doesn't have to do the hair versus mask thing. So the match itself, I thought, was pretty fun. It was bleeding. It was chaos. Like, it's fine. Psycho Clown and Sam Adonis win. I'm like, fuck yeah. Now we get to wonder if Roosh is gonna make it. But no, it's not that. No, because then it was announced that all four men were going to compete at Triple Mania 31 in Mexico City, and the person who is pinned or submitted in that four-way match must unmask or shave their head. So the entire tournament was useless, and you're ending up with a four-way match, which absolutely reeks of Roosh not wanting to do a job, and LA Park's not wanting to do a job, because from what I understand, that was the plan, is to have these two do hair versus mask, but Park didn't want to lose his mask, and Roosh didn't want to get his head shaved. So it's going to be Sam Adonis here who's going to get his head shaved, and he probably doesn't give a fuck. What an anticlimactic, ridiculous, silly thing. And then the main event was great. Kenny Vikingo? It was a great fucking wrestling match. What else do you expect? Kenny played the heel to the local babyface, Vikingo. And one thing that I've noticed in this match is that Vikingo's offense is too diverse, too fast for production to keep up. I promise you, This production is disgusting. It's bad. But Vikingo beats Kenny clean, which is what you should do. That's fine. I'll tell you what. Two things. First of all, if you want to watch a miserable wrestling show, like one that you will absolutely pound your head into the drywall, you should go ahead and watch this. Because even the most egregious North American big-time pro wrestling show that we say, wow, this wasn't very good, is not as bad as this. This was terrible. And I think sometimes, not unlike movies, right? I think everyone in their lifetime has to watch really bad films, consciously, knowing that they're watching a bad movie. You pull up some Ed Wood. That's what I did back in the day. And you're like, man, this shit stinks. Right? This is bad. Glenn or Glenda, that's awful, awful, awful stuff. Had heart, but it's just awful. So that when you do get great cinema, you're like, oh, okay. This is a monumental piece of art here. I think it's the same thing in pro wrestling. If everything you watch is good stuff, well produced, well put together, talented athletes, clear booking, fantastic stuff, you'll never know how good you have it until you watch Drek. Like WrestleMania. Not even close. Triplemania 31. Tijuana. This was bad. That's the first thing. The second thing is that whenever you hear or read online about Conan complaining about Tony Khan's booking or whatnot, it just turn it off. Erase it, delete it, block it. Don't even consult it. Conan has nothing to say to anyone else's booking on planet Earth. He puts this show together and it is trash. He should not even be given the light of day. This is an abysmal show. His booking is terrible. And I've had people tell me, AAA is not great. It's not at its best right now. It kind of stinks. It's kind of all over the place and it's not good. I had proof. I decided to jump in and see for myself, and I regret it, but I also don't. Because it confirms what I heard. And I promise you, Conan has nothing to give you. No advice to give. No standards to uphold. That's awful shit. Just awful shit. It is now time for the Impact Slammiversary 2023 review. I mean, coming off of talking about Triplemania, this is going to be better. Impact Slammiversary 2023 took place this past Saturday. What was it? July 15? Is that it? Are my days off? Is that all right? I think so. July 15. From Windsor, Ontario at St. Clair College, it is a show that was highlighted by multiple title changes. Every title in Impact Wrestling, I believe, changed, all but one. But I believe all the titles were defended and all of them lost except for one. But this was a flat show. It was a show that where everything on it was good, was fine, nothing to really complain about, nothing where you go, nothing like in AAA right now, but nothing to elevate it either, you know? And this was a big weekend of where you had tons of pro wrestling, where you had some G1 stuff, where you had, you had the misery of, I'm going to stop talking about it. And you had, Noah having a show. You had the opening salvos of the G1. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on this weekend. And this is what they had an opportunity to sort of, rise as well, elevate among the pack. But I don't think they bit here. But again, like, this is not a bad show. Let's get into it. Go over the pre-show very quickly. The Death Dolls and Jody Threat defeated Giselle Shaw, Jay Vidal, and Savannah Evans. And the Impact Digital Media title changed hands as Kenny King defeated Joe Hendry. I don't know. I thought both of these matches were pretty bad. But it's the pre-show, so I didn't put much thought into it. You'd think that a pre-show would try to do the opposite, then not give you, would do the opposite and get you excited to watch the rest of the show. Jody Threat does rule, though. That's without question. Been saying that for a long time. She's fantastic. But then when we get to the main card, we had an Ultimate X match to start off the show. Kushida defeated Alan Angels, Jonathan Gresham, Kevin Knight, Mike Bailey, and a returning Jake something. So he secures a shot at the Ultimate X, at the X Division title, I should say. I thought this was a good, albeit unspectacular opener. I mean, there were some spectacular spots. Don't get me wrong. Mike Bailey's moonsault off the rafter was awesome. Alan Angels hitting a poison rana on Kevin Knight off the cables was insane. But I usually am very much a fan of the X Division matches opening up Impact shows. It gets me into it. I think it's always high energy, but it didn't work here. Not that it didn't work. I'm going too hard. It didn't hit the highs that you usually get with these types of matches, with these Ultimate X matches and X Division matches. I don't know. There's something that felt off. But look, Jake Something returned to the company after he was gone, a year and a half? 18 months or something like that? He'd been gone for a while, tweeted out, yeah, I'm done with Impact. Now he's back, like, out of nowhere. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. Jake Something is very, very talented. I don't know what the deal there was. If he was released, I don't know what's going on. But good for him. So that was a legitimate, nice surprise. Everyone ganged up on him because he's so big. Wanted to make sure that he didn't get his shit in. But yeah, look, Kushida scampers across the ropes towards the end for the win. He's next in line. Like I said, I like Ultimate X matches. This one felt a little bog standard. Came across as a little plain, but then again, set the tone for the rest of the show. Then we had the Impact Knockouts Tag Team titles, where Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich, now known as MK Ultra, wink wink, defeat the Coven. Kylan King and Taylor Wilde, they are the new Knockouts Tag Champions. I really like this match, and I feel like I'm on a little island because I've heard people talk about it, and in my haunts and whatnot. I thought this was really good. I thought this was a super solid, dynamic match, especially carried by Masha and Kylan King. Well wrestled, well paced. Look, Masha is awesome. I don't have to sell. If I have to sell you on Masha Slamovich, it's because you've never seen her wrestle. And Masha is awesome, and she is really on another level than all of these other women here. Like, and Kylan King. If we're talking about improvements and being on other levels and whatnot, Kylan King is so much more well-rounded now than when we used to see her on Dark and, when she was a Dark regular over on AEW, right? She's come into her own so much. Both women coming in strong off the indies. Like you can tell the time they're spending on the indies is making them better all-around performers. King is solid as hell. Masha's fantastic. Final stretch was really good. Snowplow for the win. Cameras didn't pick it up, but oh well. See, Cage Match rated it at 6.32, which is like a low 3, like a 3 and a quarter, I guess. I'm high. I'm still hype on this match. I think it's great. And everything worked. Plus, that this little innuendo that they have going. They being Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich, right? Can't say it's not intriguing, to put it mildly. I think it's pretty good. I think they should keep doing it. No, but for real, like here, look, they're seeing, the domination thing over in WWE, and I say they, I mean Impact, these ladies, whoever. They see the domination thing going on with, Rhea and Dom. I'm like, well, why don't we have something like that? And they are clearly willing participants. They seem particularly into it, which makes me particularly into it. I cannot say I hate this. It's very, and it's a good tag team on top of it all. So good for them. Tag gold. Let's move on. Yet another tag team match. Scott D'Amore and his mystery opponent his mystery partner, I should say, defeated Bully Ray and Diener in a tag team match where there was a special enforcer, former Red Wings Darren McCarty. Now, I want you all to go back to last week's MrWarrenHayes show when I was previewing Slammiversary, and I want you to listen to the bit where I say, "What if it's Eric Young who shows up as the mystery partner? He hasn't been wrestling Vince's back." That's pretty much what I said. And guess what? I was settling on Petey Williams. I joked about it being Bobby Roode. And I was like, well, what if it's... And then I said, you know what? Maybe Petey Williams. But it was reported on Fightful Select on Saturday that Eric Young requested and was granted his release, in April. And specifically and directly because of his objection to working with Vince McMahon for, quote, moral, creative, and personal reasons. Now, I implied that he might leave because of those reasons. And he did. Now, look, it's not a fantastic victory lap. I didn't predict the return of Bryan Danielson. It's nothing that huge, but nonetheless, Eric Young returned. And good for him. And I don't want to doubt the guy because I don't know him. Good for him if he took a stance and he's like, man, I do not want to work with Vince McMahon for moral, personal reasons, right? That's a hell of a statement because there's a bunch of people in that company who know exactly who and what Vince McMahon is and are still collecting that cash. Now, if he decided to do that and, let his personal moral stance guide him in this situation, well, good for him. And I'm saying this despite the fact that I know, look, he's a pro wrestler. Pro wrestlers lie. He could say just whatever he wants. This makes him look good, don't get me wrong. And if he did do it, all the more power to him, like I'm saying. But, again, I don't know him. But he could be just saying this because it's the right thing to say, is what I'm saying. But he could also be saying this very sincerely, very truly, and all the more power to him, if that is the case. Anyway, the funny thing here is that Eric Young was murdered by Diener, right? Last year, he was stabbed, shanked. So I don't know what do you do? You're going to have to explain that, right? At least like Lucha Underground had the resurrection gimmick, right? Maybe Impact needs one of these now. Maybe Impact needs, one of these to just like, they found the secret idol of Scott D'Amore's, old jock, and now they lift it to the skies and they resurrect their one friend, and it's Eric Young. I don't know. Anyway, glad this match happened early on the card. D'Amore was in his hometown of Windsor, so this was not for me, but thankfully it was short, and I thought it was, and because of that, it felt amusing, because I was afraid this was going to turn into, one of these Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray overindulgences, where he was just going to do all of his things for 20 fucking minutes. We even have A1 from Team Canada who's in the audience. He hasn't wrestled in a while. Hey, we even get community theater with Bubba Ray and Scott D'Amore's mother who's ringside. Look at what your son is. He's doing this. I'm doing this because of you. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, Bubba Ray has been watching. He really does like the bloodline, doesn't he? Look. Bubba Ray is doing all sorts of nonsense to the point that the ref is fed up, takes off his shirt, and hits the bricks. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then Darren McCarty puts it on, and then now he's no longer an enforcer. He's the official referee, and I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm like, okay, none of this matters. None of it matters. It's fine. Let's just get it on. Let's get on with it. And everyone gangs up on Bubba Ray, Bully Ray. He gets put through a table. A1 jumps the rail and clothesline Khan over the top rope because Khan was there with Diener. And Scott D'Amore starts delivering, carrying Canadian destroyers. I'm like, holy shit, okay. He's got, he's a little tubby. He probably hasn't done this in a while, but look at him go. Little salute to Petey Williams, Team Canada. And they get the win after Young diving elbows Diener and pins him. Got to protect Bubba Ray. Stupid, but also fun. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Not enough fun for me to say, yeah, this was a blast. It's just like, all right. But not outright offensive enough, of my time, my intelligence. This was well done. Now, Lio Rush defeated Chris Sabin to become the new Impact X Division champion. Now, this is officially when the wind was taken out of my sails regarding this pay-per-view. Because I've told y'all, I don't watch Impact regularly, but I do enjoy watching the pay-per-views because I find the pay-per-views are solid. I think they're good, and there's always gems on it. And this was the match that I was most looking for on the entire card. I was like, are you kidding me? Chris Sabin, Lio Rush, this is going to fucking rock. This is why I plunked down some money. Well, also to cover it for the show, but now I was like, all right, cool. All right, so, bit of a weak start. The lower card is getting things going. All right, let's wash ourselves away from the Bubba Ray stuff. Let's go with Chris Sabin, Lio Rush. You're going to tear down the house. So Lio Rush makes his entrance. So does Chris Sabin. Sabin hits the apron. Lio Rush immediately knocks him off. Sabin falls to the floor. He gets back up, and Rush destroys him with a dive, instantly. And a hell of a dive. Not a dive where, arms first. No, he's going all in, and it was like a fucking torpedo. It was a great spot. Sabin's on the floor. He's got his bell rung. He's holding his head. We got medical staff around him. Stop with the medical staff spots. Honestly, they're overdone. Can't do it anymore. But Sabin is like, no, I'm the baby face. I'm the champion. I'm going to go fight on him. I'm like, okay, cool. come from behind underneath. I like it. But he eats a drop kick, 2 final hours from Lio Rush, and that's it. He's done. And I am pissed off. This was a tremendous gut punch. Because this was a Thursday night angle that you put on your show. This is bait and switch bullshit. This is you advertising a match and then deciding to pull an angle instead. This is 1997 WCW booking, and I am not interested in this. I fucking hated this. And it made me grumpy for the rest of the show. Because this was a marquee match. But Warren, they're going to do it later. This was on the fucking pay-per-view. We would not be having this conversation if they had done it on their weekly Thursday show as an angle, because this is an angle. This is bait and switch bullshit. I got cheated out of a Lio Rush, Chris Sabin match that was advertised. Because creatively we wanted to do something else. Oh, we wanted to establish Lio Rush as a killer. Bullshit! I'm paying for this show. This match is one of the reasons that I got dragged in, that I got excited for it. In fact, it's the principal match that I was looking forward to. It's one thing to do it on a Thursday night. It's another thing to do it when you have paying fucking customers who are coming into a pay-per-view, your second biggest of the year, right? One of the 2 big impact pay-per-views of the year where you're expecting, you're expecting some fantastic wrestling, some groundbreaking shit. No, you get a fucking angle. It's carny. It's bullshit. And that took me out of the rest of the show. Lio Rush is your new champion. Oh, they're going to do a tag team thing with Mike Bailey versus, Chris Bay versus Hiromu Takahashi and Mike Bailey. And everyone's like, look, Warren. And I'm like, no, yes, that's cool. That's fine. But what I'm seeing here is so old school carny nonsense. And again, one of the reasons, it's another little thing that keeps me from getting fully invested in Impact, because I feel like I'm going to get the rug pulled out from under me at any given moment, just like this. Anyway, we had the 4-way tag team match for the Impact World title, and Subculture defeated Ace Austin and Chris Bay, Brian Myers and Moose, Rich Swann and Sami Callihan to become the new tag team champions. Just last week, look, I was saying on the preview, right? I was saying that multi-person matches in Impact are typically not good. They're not. This was one of the okay ones, because everyone was getting their shit in, and I thought the pace was good. The action was dynamic, and even the big guys were getting their shit in. When I'm talking about the big guys, I'm talking about Moose, I'm talking about Brian Myers. That said, you can look at how this match was structured. You can look at the layout. You can even see how it all played out, how the finish came together, and you can legitimately wonder why Moose and Myers were in this match. Sure, they were the bigger guys, they were the obstacles to overcome, but they really didn't bring anything that was required to this match. I still don't understand why this had to be a multi-person match outside of the idea of we have to protect Chris Bay and Ace Austin. But the match finished with interference regardless. So you're still protecting Chris Bay and Ace Austin. Like, I don't understand. Outside of the concept of let's put as many guys on the pay-per-view as possible, I just don't understand. I can't see how this match being a 4-way was better than a 2-on-2, especially considering the tag teams that were here. Because Ace and Bay get taken out by the remaining rascals, right? Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel. And Subculture get the win. But, gripes aside, I thought this match was pretty good. And I thought it was a really good move because subculture rule. You know, you want guys who are excellent pro wrestlers and TV ready that can help elevate a division. It's these dudes. And when I say help elevate a division, let me make sure I'm clear here. The division was already being elevated by Ace Austin and Chris Bay. They are a fantastic tag team. Like, I think it's one of these pairings that go a little above and beyond. Not unlike Catch 2-2 over in New Japan. These guys are fantastic. A top tag team. So I'm glad that at least that's going to continue. And they were already elevating the division. They were already making it a marquee spot, a place to get excited to see tag team wrestling. And because they were phenomenal as champs, it's just subculture doesn't feel like a downgrade, right? It feels like we're continuing the same momentum that Chris Bay and Ace Austin had established with their reign. I think that it continues. So I'm excited for this. Subculture, look, Mark Andrews is great. Flash Morgan Webster he's jacked now. And on their trio with what's her name? Dali Luna. It's a fun little trio. It's a fun little dynamic they got there, you know. They're not as young as they once was, but they're still young. They still have a youthful energy about them. It's fun. They look great. It's a good act on top of them being good pro wrestlers. Was the right decision. Eddie Edwards defeated Frankie Kazarian. They were accompanied to the ring by their wives, Alicia Edwards for Eddie and Tracy Brooks for Frankie. Look, these guys put their working boots on for a match that played a classic heel babyface dynamic that really worked. Great heat segments by Edwards to make this into something meaningful. And he also lands a backpack stunner in this match. And listen, I was really into this match, more so than I thought I would. Because I really didn't care about their match at Under Siege. I thought this was a veteran match. Couple of vets hitting moves. And it worked. Everything clicked. It flowed. It managed. These guys worked hard enough that I finally started to care. That I cared about this match. Like, oh, fuck, all right. This is going now. Until the wives got involved. There's ref bumps and kendo stick shots with Eddie Edwards landing the Boston Knee Party for the win. I really didn't like the finish. I thought the finish broke the momentum of this match. Because I really think this could have been a talk of the town type match. This could have been the match. It should have been Chris Sabin and Leo Rush. But with the hand we're dealt, this could have been the match that people the next day are going, you know what? Edwards and Kazarian put on a hell of a banger. You know, and everyone's going like, 3.25, 4 stars. Like, really? Yeah, you should check it out, man. It's a good, gritty wrestling match, and it really was. But the finish really soured me to it because they went, for some reason, they could have gone into a real hot finish, but instead we had to have an overbooked cat fight with the ladies. It was good for what it was, but man, it could have been a lot better. You know, I deflated. Then we had the Impact Knockouts World Title match, where Trinity defeated Deonna Purrazzo. She is now the Impact's World Champion. The Impact Knockouts World Champion. The Impact Knockouts World Champion. I've seen a lot of good comments about this match. I've seen a lot of people praise it. People that I like. People say, hey, you know what? I thought this was pretty good. I thought this was strong. And maybe I feel like I'm on my island again. Because I didn't think this match was good. think it was good. I thought Deanna's, and again, these are women that I like. These are wrestlers I like. I think Deanna's fantastic. Trinity, I know what I get when I'm seeing a Trinity match. Don't get me wrong. I know what I'm getting into. You know, Trinity is not a Deonna Purrazzo. Trinity is not she's not a Jamie Hayter. She's not a Toni Storm. She's not an Utami Hayashishita. She's Trinity. She's not a Mercedes Moné either. I know what I'm getting into. You know, a little sloppy, not quite precise, but, you know, energy, heart, athleticism. Not everything in this match was slow. Trinity was slow. And sloppy, like particularly sloppy. And the finish was terrible. I thought the finish was terrible. She does her full Nelson, you know, her full Nelson bomb. She does it from the second rope kind of thing. And then she forgets how to roll into her starstruck for submission. So for a second she's like, oh. And then she repositions herself and then she goes into it. I don't know, guys, gals, non-binary pals. I feel bad because this is a good moment for Trinity, and Trinity is over with the Impact crowd, and this is a good moment personally for her because she was overlooked for so long in WWE, and she was considered like just nothing, despite the fact that she had all the tools at her disposal to just be outstanding and fantastic. And them never really believing in her and giving her a chance. I don't know. I feel bad. But, you know, spade is a spade. You come here for analysis. You come here for thoughts. It doesn't take away the fact that she's the champion and that she's going to have this is a crowning moment for her. She's going to have a good little run as champion in Impact, and good for her, you know, kind of thing. But this is an entirely forgettable match. And then we had the main event, Impact World Title, where Alex Shelley successfully retained his title, the only guy to hold on to his title. Everyone else lost their belts. Alex Shelley made it out. I thought this was a solid main event. Shelley coming in quickly to get the win, but the poised world champion, Aldis, he was ready, right? You know, Shelley comes in hard and fast. You know, he spits water into Aldis's face. Aldis keeps his cool, keeps his composure. Next thing you know, he's using his finisher like, you know, within the first 5 minutes of the match. Like, oh shit, you're in trouble. But no, Alex Shelley recentered himself. And it's great, right? Here's, you know, all this, the straight-laced, you know, corporate guy, you know, the anointed, good-looking, poured into suits, GQ looking, face of the company type guy, suit wearing elitist, traditionalist, versus, you know, punk rock, Iggy Pop, indie maestro, Alex Shelley. I dug like the essence of this match. Yeah. I thought it had good moments, finish was good, but it didn't hit a next gear. You know, on a show that needed a next gear. And then we found out soon thereafter that Nick Aldis is done with Impact Wrestling. According to PW Insider's Mike Johnson, Nick Aldis has wrapped up a short run with Impact Wrestling and is now a free agent following this weekend's action. His next destination might be one he's never appeared in, the WWE. Johnson reported that WWE sources confirmed that the 36-year-old Aldis is drawing quote-unquote high interest from them and has been discussed internally as a potential producer. After his long run with the NWA ended unceremoniously at the end of 2022, Aldis made his return to Impact at April's Rebellion by confronting then world champion Steve Macklin at the end of the show. He wrestled 8 times in his 3-month run. And apparently Zicky Dice is out as well. Hey, Babaruski, nice to see you, pal. Welcome to the chat. I find it funny because Mike Johnson, at the very least, is, someone who has a good track record. Mike does good work. But what's funny here is, they have high interest. We've heard, WWE has high interest in signing Kota Ibushi, high interest in signing Jay White. So whenever that comes out, I'm like, smells a little off. But, if they want to try him out as a producer, they can. He might have a tryout. If you remember last year when I was talking about Nick Aldis and his future, and I was saying, I feel like a behind the scenes role for him is probably where he'd be best suited. Because look, where does he go? How does he fit in Impact? If he goes, well, he'll always fit in Impact. That's not what I meant. What if he how does he fit into AEW? Like, where do you slot in Nick Aldis in AEW in 2023 right now? There's not a spot for that guy. WWE, you could argue that he could have a spot, but there's a lot of guys there who do what he does and do it a little better. He can talk and he looks good. Well, LA Knight right now. I mean, you could. Don't get me wrong. And I think out of all the opportunities, out of all the positions, I think WWE might be best suited, but I don't know how far this guy goes. Plus, don't forget, he doesn't get along with Bruce Pritchard, doesn't get along with Cody Rhodes. These might be deal breakers. I don't know. Of course, water's under the bridge when it comes to making money and so on and so forth. But, there's still things in WWE there that could be a detriment to Nick Aldis working there, is all I'm saying. And I was saying he should, behind the scenes stuff, maybe open up a promotion in the UK, take advantage of the fact that, there's that the scene there is a disaster. There's money to be made there. He comes in with his connections, his know-how, his people. So, good for him. Good for him if he gets a tryout as a producer. I hope it works out for him. Everyone should get paid to do what they love. But yeah, short run, I don't have a problem with it either. I don't have a problem with that either. And I know a lot of people go, what the fuck, man? Well, maybe it was just a short deal. It makes you think sometimes. Look, it makes you think sometimes. Maybe if the business, if wrestlers had shorter deals and could move around more easier, I think for one, it would be better for pro wrestlers because I feel like they'd get more experience. I figured that they'd get more experience, they'd work different styles, they'd open themselves up more, and I think they'd end up making some good amounts of money. I think it's just beneficial for pro wrestlers on that front. And I think for fans ultimately as well. Because then it keeps you on your toes. Then you never fall into a situation where things feel are stagnating, a status quo. There's none of that because people are always moving around, just like in the territories. You have a guy goes in, works the territories 4 or 5 months, hits his ceiling, puts the other guys out on his way out, then moves to the other place where he comes in as a star. You know what I mean? Maybe more deals like all this than, Moose signing for 7 years. What was his thing? It doesn't matter. But then the big news happened, and Josh Alexander came out. Big surprise return. He relinquished the Impact title back in March when he suffered a torn triceps. Says, I'm back to Alex Shelley. And And I just got really hot and sweaty. Because that match is going to rule, kids. But yeah, look, Alex Shelley, and here's the other thing that this did. Here's the other thing that we have to keep in mind here. Alex Shelley defeating Nick Aldis. You know, I myself was a little surprised. I thought Aldis was going to win, but this adds credibility to Alex Shelley's reign. Straight off the bat, former world champion in Impact, plus, carrying the legacy of the NWA, even though he'll probably never mention it again. Still, nonetheless, a legacy champion, a guy that you associate with world championships. Alex Shelley defeated him. That's credibility to the reign right now. So, Impact Slammiversary 2023. Nothing on this card that I would outright recommend. I would not even recommend the card in and about itself because, look, it's not because it was a bad show. It's because it was so even, just so flat. A 3.5 show the entire way. So nothing egregiously terrible. And we've seen Impact shows that are just bad. Outside of the piss poor fucking idiotic moronic decision to bait and switch us with the Chris Sabin Leo Rush match. Outside of that, it's a fine pro wrestling show. And if you want to watch a fine pro wrestling show, go right ahead. Right now, there's so much great stuff out there. You'd be spending your time better watching a more complete wrestling show than this. I would suggest the night one of the G1 Climax 33 this year, by the way, which is free. You don't even have to pay for it. And you'll get a much better show than this, which again is a fine show. We just have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to quality pro wrestling. You don't have to settle for anything. You don't have to settle for anything that's just okay. You can go for great. And there's not even a match here where I'd recommend, where I'd outright say you have to see this match. It's just, it is what it is, I guess. Now, we're going to have a somewhat quick preview of Ring of Honor. Yeah, I know, right? Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor 2023. Quick preview. Why is it going to be a quick preview, Warren? Because there's barely anything announced for the goddamn show. And we're recording this on a Tuesday. And the show's on a Friday. And we don't even know what the main event is. Tell me when I'm telling lies. I mean, look. If you don't think at this point that Ring of Honor isn't like a tertiary product in the brain of Tony Khan, I don't know what to tell you. And there might be, look, the Ring of Honor pay-per-views so far have all delivered. They've all been fantastic. So it's reasonable to believe that this Friday's pay-per-view is going to be good at the very least. But this is pretty fucking dismal. 5 matches announced, one of which is part of the main event, and we don't even know what the main event is. Look, let's break this down. It's happening this Friday, like I said, July 21st, from Trenton, New Jersey, at the Cure Insurance Arena. We're going to have a 4-way tag team match for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship. Oh, God, you know how much I love these, right, guys, non-binary pals? Lucha Brothers versus The Kingdom versus the Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent, versus Aussie Open with the returning Mark Davis. This is fantastic news to see Mark Davis back on his feet, back from injury. That wasn't too severe. Cheers. That is something that makes me legitimately happy. Now this 4-way though, look. We're going to take the titles off the Lucha Brothers, clearly. Like, this is clearly what they're going to do. But there's nothing to, like, I didn't need a four-way here. We never need a four-way for multiple for championships. Build a contender. Build a contender. Have it 2-on-2. You kidding me? The Lucha Bros and Aussie Open couldn't have done. Hell, Lucha Brothers and the Kingdom, because I think the Kingdom should win these titles. Give it to a fucking tag team who is going to spend time in Ring of Honor, right? As opposed to one of the AEW guys that you've brought into Ring of Honor to fill out a spot, like the Lucha Bros, like Aussie Open. It's the same thing, and I love Aussie Open. That's not the question. Or the Best Friend. Just give it to the fucking Kingdom, and they've been doing great work. On top of it all, they've been doing fantastic work. They should have been built as the challengers, challenge the Lucha Bros, have a great 2-on-2, and move on. But no, this is where we're at. I'm already annoyed. It's annoying. Athena will be defending her Ring of Honor Women's World Championship against Willow Nightingale. Nice little tie-in to the Owen tournament. Since Willow pinned Athena, that guaranteed her a title shot. So that's cool. Also ending Athena's 49 singles match winning streak. So this is cool. I like this. There's history. There's bad blood. I hope Willow Nightingale wins. Do you know why? Because the women's roster right now on AEW needs Athena. If there is one thing that AEW, at Ring of Honor, will have been good for, is rehabilitating Athena from what she used to be to what she is now, because she started this super aggressive streak tour on Dark. We remember that, the safety police coming out because they felt, oh, she's punching Jody Threat a little too strong. Ladies, ooh, this is not a very nice and ladylike behavior. Ouchies. And from there on, she has just been tremendous. She has legitimately become one of the strongest, stiffest working women in that company. She's exactly what you need on main TV right now. She's needed on Dynamite. She's needed on Collision. And who is she? She's needed for Chris Statlander, because they're already running through people. Statlander's already run through Nyla, Anna Jay, Taya Valkyrie. All right, let's go with Athena. That has meat. That has substance. Willow doesn't mean I want Willow relegated to Ring of Honor. Willow is a blessing and a charm, and she can show up anytime, and you feel like she can show up anytime. For some reason, Athena's been stashed away. So if this is a way to open the door and release her back into the AEW wild, let's do it, because I think they really need it. And let's continue this beautiful streak, this extraordinary career 2023 that Willow Nightingale is having. Give her the Women's Ring of Honor World Championship. Katsuyori Shibata will be defending the Pure title against Daniel Garcia. I had a bit of a butterfly effect moment. I thought these guys had fought one-on-one for the title before, but they haven't. And this is one that's been simmering for a while. I'm excited for this. This should be very good. I'm more than excited to see this match. Look at Dan Garcia go against Katsuyori Shibata. This is fantastic. And I would not be surprised in the slightest if Garcia wins the title. I don't know what the deal is with Shibata, right? Other than he's been doing jack shit in New Japan. Maybe he's about to go back. I don't know. Can't tell you. Maybe they don't want to risk it. Maybe they're like, no, you're too risky for us, for our protocol. Maybe he works, look, I saw Katsuyori Shibata wrestle. One of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I saw him wrestle right before my eyes. It was a bucket list moment for me. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that he was still around to do that. I'm grateful that he had the opportunity to do that. As long as he continues being safe, making sure that he's all right. But this should be very good. Dalton Castle won a tournament. A TV championship tournament because, people get injured and whatnot, right? Samoa Joe, so he won the tournament to challenge Samoa Joe for the Ring of Honor Television Championship. There was also Shane Taylor in the tournament that met Dalton Castle in the finals, I should say. I go really two ways on this one, and I don't know what I would have preferred. I think Shane Taylor would have made for a more interesting match with Samoa Joe, considering the size of both these guys. You would have just had a big giant dudes, two big hefty boys, just kicking the shit out of each other. That would have been a lot of fun. But then again, Dalton Castle. And Dalton Castle rules. And there should be more TV time for Dalton Castle. And I don't know why there's not more TV time for Dalton Castle, because he has all the elements that people love in North American TV. Sure, he's got the injuries, but who doesn't? Know who else has injuries? Kenny Omega, he's on TV. Know what I'm saying? I think Joe's retaining. And then Claudio Castagnoli versus whoever, who is apparently going to be announced on tomorrow's Dynamite. When I say tomorrow, as I'm recording this, on the Blood and Guts show. His opponent is going to be announced there 2 days before the pay-per-view. I don't know what to tell you. Look, I get it. It was supposed to be Eddie Kingston. Then Eddie Kingston goes and does the G1. It was supposed to be Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe gets injured. It's like this has to be a pretty good surprise at this point. Like you'd have to assume, like the only way you can make this really good and save face and be like, holy shit, is if it's a real good surprise. If it's another AEW guy, we're going to go, like, who on the roster, on the Ring of Roster, who on the roster, on the Ring of Honor roster right now is would be a significant challenge, right? Like someone you go, oh, I hadn't thought about this, is really cool. Right, give me a second here. All right. I'm just looking down the card here. God. Like you've got no one. Like there's no one that'd be like, oh yeah, this fucking rules, right? Unless Joe pulls double duty. Blake Christian, like that's not a main event thing. AR Fox, that's not a main event thing. Toa Leona, I don't see it. And then if they bring it, if it's someone from AEW, it's like, it's Dustin Rhodes. And we're going to be like, oh, okay. There's no glam, there's no glitz. You'd have to assume that there's a big surprise, that it's someone that, look, Satoshi Kojima coming in one more time to save the day. It's got to be out of left field like that, right? It's got to be something that you're just like, holy shit. I don't know. I don't know what to think. Big Bill was like, yeah, I love Big Bill, but this is, Doesn't have that big match feel. Look, this pay-per-view build has been atrocious. It's been disgusting. It's been bad. I'm going to watch it because that's my self-appointed job. That's what I want to do. And Ring of Honor pay-per-views since Tony took over have not let me down. They've been good pro wrestling shows. It's a good little Friday night affair. But I honestly do not know. Like, you can't put Shane Taylor. Shane Taylor was just in a tournament for the TV title, and you can't go, oh, okay, here you go, Shane Taylor. Like that, you know. I don't know. That's my preview. I'd give you more, but I haven't been given more. There's not much more I can give. Oh, so there you go. That's the preview for Death Before Dishonor. We'll have a full review next week on the show. But as it stands right now, it is time to end the weekly wrestling inspection. Well, it's enough of that. We're going to wrap things up for today, folks, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Thank you, everyone, for joining me here on another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Again, if you are watching on YouTube right now, a like and a subscription would be great, and a follow, a subscription on your favorite podcast application as well would be great, because, hey, on top of all of this great stuff, on top of the Collision and Dynamite reviews, daily G1 reviews from your boy. So I'm your best source. I am legitimately, no, maybe not legitimately, but I'm probably the best source, one of them anyway, for following the G1 Climax 33 this year. It's just a good time to become a subscriber to what I do here on the internet in regards to professional wrestling. So do it now. Thank you, everyone, very much for joining me, whether it's on audio, whether it's video. I appreciate your patronage tremendously. Trust me, it's very humbling, and I hope I work hard enough to make sure that you guys and gals and non-binary pals stick around. I will be back tomorrow for night 4 of the G1. Then I'll be back on Thursday for the AEW Dynamite review. But in the meantime, I hope everyone has a great rest of their week, and I'll see you next time.